At that 4th of July barbecue, I was stuck in a late meeting at the law firm. My sister and parents told my 18-year-old daughter there was no room for her at the table in our tundra cabin in Alaska. She had to walk home alone through the remote trails and spend the holiday in an empty apartment. I didn't make a scene. I took action. My sister found an ultimatum email and started ranting. My name is Michelle Thomas. At that 4th of July barbecue, I was stuck in a late meeting at the law firm. My sister and parents told my 18-year-old daughter there was no room for her at the table in our tundra cabin in Alaska. She had to walk home alone through the remote trails and spend the holiday in an empty apartment. I didn't make a scene. I took action. My sister found an ultimatum email and started ranting. I dragged myself through the door just past midnight, my briefcase heavy with case files I'd been revising for hours. The law firm had me pinned down with a client who kept nitpicking contract terms, even as fireworks lit up the Anchorage skyline. It was one of those grueling days that left me hollowed out, so when I saw her boots by the door, my stomach dropped. Someone's hurt, I thought instantly. Then I noticed her coat slung over the armrest, her backpack untouched, and her curled up on the couch, knees tucked tight like she didn't trust the cushions to catch her. My mind raced to make sense of it. She was supposed to be at the family's tundra cabin an hour's flight from Anchorage for our traditional 4th of July barbecue. She'd begged to go alone this year, her first taste of independence at 18, so proud to prove she could handle it. She'd left early to be respectful, texting me when she landed. My husband and I were both tied up with work, so the plan made sense until it didn't. I called out softly, not wanting to startle her. Her eyes snapped open wide and alert, like she hadn't been asleep at all. "Hey," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why are you here?" she asked, sitting up slowly, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. I sat beside her. "They said there was no room?" she said. Her voice cracked and she tried to shrug it off, but the hurt clung to her words. "No room where I asked," confused. At the table, she answered. "They weren't expecting me. Too many people already." My sister had looked at her like she was a complication, like her showing up ruined the barbecue. "But you got there on time, right?" I pressed. "Yeah, right on time," she said, with a dry laugh that didn't reach her eyes. My sister opened the cabin door and stared at me like I'd shown up to the wrong party. She paused, swallowing hard. She said there wasn't a bed either, said it was too late to walk back. But they didn't know where to put me. So I left. I stared at her, my chest tightening. "Did anyone offer to get you a ride back to the airport?" She shook her head. "Nope. Did they at least let you eat?" Another shrug. Table was full. My niece was in my usual spot. Grandpa was laughing with her like she was the star of the night. Nobody looked at me. My sister had said, "It's a full house this year," and the aunts nodded like it was obvious. She glanced at the coffee table. I made toast. I followed her gaze. A single slice of toast, cold and bent, sat on a paper towel next to half a banana. That was her 4th of July meal. Something twisted inside me, not quite rage, but a sharp, icy feeling like glass about to shatter. "I wasn't that hungry," she mumbled, "not really." Her eyes started to glisten. She fought it, blinked hard, bit her lip, looked away, but the tears came anyway, slow and quiet, like she couldn't stop them. "I felt like I was intruding," she whispered. "Like showing up was rude." She'd brought a pie thinking they'd have enough food but left it behind when they sent her away. I sat closer, wrapping an arm around her. She leaned in like she'd been holding herself together out of sheer will. "I know they don't like you," she said after a moment, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "But I thought—" She trailed off. "You thought you were just the kid, not part of their issues," I finished. She nodded. "They didn't even say it meanly," she added. "It was like I was a chair they didn't have room for." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the kitchen, staring at her backpack, still zipped, packed with care, a sweater my sister once complimented, a tin of cookies she'd baked. I opened the fridge. Nothing special inside. We hadn't planned a backup holiday. Why would we? We trusted them. But that trust broke when they looked at my daughter, my brave, sweet girl, who showed up on time with a smile and told her with 28 people crowded around that barbecue table, "There's no room for you." They didn't mean space, they meant her. The next morning, my husband came home while she slept. I told him everything. He stood quiet for a long moment before asking, "What do we do now?" The next morning, I couldn't shake the image of my daughter curled up on the couch, her backpack still packed from the night before. I needed to hear every detail of what happened at that barbecue to understand how far my family had gone. I walked into the living room where she was still sleeping, her face softer now, but marked by faint tear stains. I gently touched her shoulder. "It's morning. Let's talk more." She stirred, rubbed her eyes, and sat up, pulling her sweater tighter around her. "Mom," she said, her voice rough from the night's emotions. "I don't even know where to start." I sat beside her, ready to listen. "Start from when you got to the cabin. Everything." She took a deep breath and began her words, careful but raw. "I landed in Anchorage and took a shuttle to the tundra cabin. Got there right on time, just as the barbecue was starting. The trails were lit by the endless summer sun, so it wasn't scary or anything. My sister opened the door and her face fell immediately. She said, 'We weren't expecting you to come alone.' But I had confirmed with Grandma last week." My sister just shrugged and said the table was full with 28 people already, including cousins and neighbors from the nearby settlement. My niece was in my usual spot, chatting with Grandpa like she was the center of attention. No one made eye contact with me, as if I was invisible. My sister added that there was no bed left and it was too late to head back, but they didn't know where to put me, so I turned around and left without grabbing a bite. I interrupted to ask, did they offer any food at all? She shook her head. Nothing. The grills were loaded with burgers and hot dogs, but the table was packed. I saw the aunts nodding when my sister said, "Full house this year?" It felt like they planned it that way. Her story poured out and I felt the anger simmer a notch higher with each detail. She described how my niece laughed at jokes from the cousins while she stood there holding the pie she'd brought. It was like I was a ghost mom. Grandpa even told my niece, "You're the life of the party," right as I walked in. That hit me hard because I'd paid for the plane tickets for the whole family to get to Alaska this year, the costs piling up, but I did it thinking it built unity. Now it seemed like a waste. She talked about the walk back, the trails quiet under the midnight sun, her phone battery dying halfway, so she couldn't call for help or a ride. I just kept walking, thinking about the cookies I left behind unopened. I clenched my fists, the rage building slowly but steadily. This wasn't a simple mix-up. It was targeted exclusion meant to send a message through my daughter. As she spoke, I hugged her tighter, feeling her body relax slightly against me. "I thought they liked me at least a little," she said, her voice trembling but stronger than last night. "I did too," I replied. But actions speak louder and theirs screamed disregard. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper. Then I stood up. "We need to think about what comes next. But first, let's get you some real breakfast to replace that toast." As I scrambled eggs and brewed coffee, my mind flashed back to the sacrifices that led here. It started when I was young, waiting tables through law school, taking shifts no one wanted, coming home with aching feet and exhaustion etched into me. My family never visited during my long hours or celebrated when I landed my first job at the firm. Instead, the calls came for help, the electric bill, a co-signed lease, or a relative's medical check that turned out fine. I never refused until recently. A few months ago, my sister called about my niece's acceptance into a summer exploration camp in Alaska. "She's got your smarts," she said, as if it was a compliment. "This could change her life." I asked the cost. "20,000, she replied, "but it's worth it." That's where I drew the line. My daughter never attended such camps, not because she couldn't, but because she never asked, being practical and thoughtful. She wouldn't dream of demanding that money even though she deserved it. I told my sister no politely but firmly, explaining I was already covering the cabin mortgage, utilities, and emergencies. Perhaps she could seek financial aid or a payment plan? Her tone shifted quickly. Wow, must be nice to have it all and still be stingy. She's your niece. You're just jealous because my niece is going places. That stung, especially when I overheard my mom echoing similar words a week later, implying I held the family back by succeeding and making others look bad simply by existing. I didn't argue or justify. I just said no and meant it. That was 3 weeks before the 4th of July. My daughter had been excited to go, said she felt grown up handling the trip herself. She packed her bag with small gifts for the younger cousins and texted me upon arrival. Everything seemed fine until it wasn't. Hours later, I walked in to find fine canceled. My daughter looked up from the couch with a wobbly smile, begging me to pretend it wasn't a disaster. She told me in a small voice that my sister had murmured, "No space at the table or anywhere else," despite counting 28 chairs in use, a math problem with one variable, her. I listened, letting her words echo like a dropped bag. Then I wrapped my arms around her and let the silence speak. She fell asleep, still in the sweater meant to impress them. When the apartment quieted, I sat in the kitchen staring where her holiday meal should have been. I replayed every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every just this once that became permanent. They hadn't run out of room, they'd run out of gratitude. And they'd used my daughter to deliver the message. That flipped the switch. No more explanations, no more polite talks. I didn't decide if I'd act, only how soon. We didn't speak much on the drive to the firm later, my husband beside me, his hand on my knee, grounding, not comforting, just present. That was enough. The morning after the 4th always has that hazy quiet, like the world's hungover on smoke and sparklers. I hoped the cabin was empty, but it wasn't, judging by the emails pinging in. I held the draft tight. I hadn't slept between the meeting, the scene with my daughter, the cold toast still on the counter uncleaned. It hummed in my brain like a fault line. While making breakfast, my mind drifted to my childhood, when being smart meant being the outsider in my own family. It set the tone for all the sacrifices I'd make later. I can't recall the exact moment someone first called me strange, probably before I even understood the word. At 6, I found a broken toy car and asked to take it apart, not to be odd, but to figure out how it worked. My mom slammed her hand on the kitchen counter and snapped, "What's wrong with you, Michelle?" My sister laughed and told everyone I was trying to build a robot to scare them. I got sent to my room for upsetting her. That pretty much shaped everything. I loved puzzle books, begged for a toolkit one birthday, and talked about how engines worked during dinner. At school, I was the kid raising her hand with answers. In my family, that earned me the know-it-all label. Nobody else chased college, most barely finished high school on their first try. I studied during commercial breaks while they watched sitcoms. By 12, my dad started joking, half serious, that I couldn't be his. "If you were mine, you'd skip books and love fishing," he'd say with a chuckle. One night, I overheard him arguing with my mom, thinking I was asleep. He asked if she'd ever stepped out on him, said I didn't look or act like anyone in the family. I lay awake for hours, but never brought it up, still haven't. High school didn't change much. My sister leaned hard into her role as the family's favorite. She was loud, charming, and average in school, but a master at spinning every stumble into a story people loved. She'd cry on cue and tell anyone who'd listen she was looking out for her awkward little sister who didn't get jokes. She'd call me Miss Fix-It in front of her friends, laughing like it was clever. When I passed the bar exam years later, she switched to Miss Moneybags Progress, I suppose. When I earned a full-ride scholarship to college, my parents barely blinked. No celebration, no hugs. My mom just asked who I thought I'd marry, since guys apparently don't like women who outshine them. I said maybe I'd marry my career. She didn't laugh. They never gave me a dime. I waited tables through law school, picked up every late shift nobody wanted, came home with sore feet and exhaustion carved into me. To them, I was living some dream they didn't care to understand. They never visited, not once during my clerkships or when I landed my first stable job at the firm. My husband and I met during a late-night case prep romantic if you count shared coffee and deadlines, and we scraped together a life beyond instant noodles. That's when their calls started rolling in. Could I help with the electric bill, co-sign a lease? Get a lawyer friend to check on a relative's legal issue? I said yes every time, especially when my parents hit retirement age too early with nothing saved. They'd always rented, always had bad credit or bad luck, whatever excuse fit the year. So I bought a tundra cabin in Alaska for my sister after her divorce, handed her the keys, and told her I'd cover the mortgage. It's in my name, but she lives there like it's hers. Utilities, medical bills, emergencies. I paid those too, more often than not. It wasn't just the cabin. I covered plane tickets for family trips like the one for this 4th of July barbecue. I paid for my parents' dental plans when Medicare fell short, handled random cousins' fines when they swore it was a one-time thing. I never said no until a few months ago. My sister called about a summer exploration camp for my niece, some elite program in Alaska. She's got your brain, she said, like it was a compliment. It could change her life. I asked the cost. $20,000, she answered, but it's worth it. I paused. My daughter never asked for camps like that, not because she couldn't qualify, but because she's practical, never demanding. I told my sister no, calmly but firmly, pointing out I was already covering the cabin bills and emergencies. Maybe she could look into financial aid or a payment plan. Her voice turned sharp. Must be nice to have everything and still be so stingy. She's your niece, jealous because she's going places. I heard my mom echo something similar a week later, muttering, I'd always held my sister back by being the smart one who made everyone else look bad, just by existing. I didn't argue or explain. I just said no and meant it. That was 3 weeks before the barbecue. Back in the present, the smell of coffee pulled me out of those memories. My daughter was eating her eggs quietly, her face still heavy from last night. I heard the front door open, and my husband walked in, his tie loosened from his own late shift. He set his bag down and looked at us, reading the room instantly. What happened? He asked, voice low. I told him everything, how my sister and parents turned Stephanie away at the barbecue, told her there was no room left her to walk the trails alone. His jaw tightened, but he stayed calm, the way he always does when things get heavy. So what's the plan? He asked, sitting across from me. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the mug. They crossed a line. I've given them everything, money, time, that cabin. They used our daughter to send a message. I'm done. He nodded, slow and steady. What's your next step? I didn't answer right away, but my mind was already working. I'd spent years bending over backward for them, thinking family meant sacrifice, but family doesn't mean letting your kid get hurt. I'm taking back what's mine, I said finally, starting with that cabin. He reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. That was enough. His quiet strength, no questions, just support. I knew what I had to do, and it wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be action. After my husband left for his shift, I sat down at the computer that afternoon and drafted the email ultimatum, laying out the terms for my sister to vacate the cabin. I kept it professional, like a legal notice, 60 days to move out or face formal eviction proceedings. I attached the ownership documents to remind her it was in my name, and I'd been paying the mortgage all these years. No accusations, just facts. I hit send before I could second-guess myself and leaned back, watching the screen as if it would explode. It didn't. But my phone did minutes later. The first call came from my sister, the screen lighting up with her name. I let it ring once, then picked up, knowing what was coming. What is this? She said, her voice raised and sharp like a blade. An ultimatum. You're throwing me out over a holiday mix-up. I stayed calm. It wasn't a mix-up, Sarah. You turned Stephanie away when she showed up for the barbecue, told her there was no room. She laughed, a bitter sound. Oh, come on. Oh, we had 28 people. The cabin was packed. She could have called ahead. I gripped the phone tighter. She did confirm. And even if she didn't, that's no excuse to send her walking the trails alone. She paused. Then her tone shifted to defensive. You're overreacting. This is about your jealousy, isn't it? Always has been. You think you're better with your law firm job, but now you're using the cabin to punish us. I didn't bite. The cabin is mine. I gave it to you as help, but help ends when you hurt my family. She raised her voice again. Your family. What about ours? Mom and Dad are here too. You're evicting them. I heard my mom in the background murmuring something, but my sister cut her off. This is low, Michelle. If you do this, you're dead to us. She hung up before I could respond, the line going silent. I set the phone down, my hands shaking slightly, but my resolve firm. The calls kept coming, texts pinging in rapid fire. One from my sister, unbelievable. After everything we've done for you. Another, think of Samantha. She loves the cabin. I ignored them, focusing on the draft I'd saved just in case. An hour later, the phone rang again, this time my mom. I answered, bracing myself. Michelle? How could you? She said, her voice trembling with anger. That email, it's cruel. We raised you better than this. I took a breath. Raised me. You mean the years I paid for your bills? The cabin, the medical costs? I did that because I thought it was family. But turning Stephanie away wasn't family. She interrupted. It was a full house. No chairs left. Don't make us monsters over one night. I felt the twist in my chest return. It wasn't one night. It's years of taking and no thanks. And now my daughter pays for it. She sighed, dramatic as always. You're tearing us apart. If you go through with this, there's no coming back. Your dad is furious. I heard my dad in the background, his voice muffled but loud. Tell her she's no daughter of mine if she does this. My mom continued. We can fix this. Just retract the email and help with Samantha's camp like your sister asked. Then we forgive you. Forgive me. The word hung there like a slap. There's nothing to forgive on my side, I said quietly. You chose to exclude her. Now I choose to protect her. She raised her voice. Protect. This is revenge, Michelle. Pure and simple. Think about your reputation. Your firm won't like this family mess. I almost laughed. My clients care about cases, not where my sister lives. Goodbye, Mom, I said, and hung up the phone, buzzing in my hand. The afternoon dragged on with more messages. My sister sent a chain of texts accusing me of being stingy, unappreciative of their support growing up. You were always the weird one. One read, now, you're the cold one too. I didn't reply, but the words stung, echoing the labels from childhood. My mom called back twice, leaving voicemails, the first pleading, the second angry. If you evict us, you're cutting ties forever, she said in the last one, her voice cracking. I listened, then deleted them. My husband texted from work. How's it going? I replied. They're reacting as expected. Angry, no remorse. He sent back, stay strong, we'll talk tonight. That grounded me. By evening, the phone quieted, but the weight didn't lift. I knew this was just the beginning. My sister would rally the family, spread her version of the story. But I had the facts, the cabin deed, the payment records. I wasn't backing down. Not when they'd looked at my daughter and said no room. The email was sent and the line was drawn. As the sun set over Anchorage, I sat on the couch where Stephanie had slept last night. She was out with friends now, trying to shake off the hurt, but I could see it lingered in her eyes. I opened my laptop again, reviewing the email to make sure it was airtight. Dear Sarah, it started as the owner of the property. I'm giving you 60 days notice to vacate. I listed the reasons without emotion, the mortgage in my name, the lack of agreement, the recent events that showed the arrangement no longer worked. I attached bank statements showing years of payments. It was legal, clean, no room for argument. But arguments came anyway. The phone rang once more, my sister again. I answered. You can't do this, she said, breathless. Mom's crying, Dad's pacing. The cabin is our home. I stayed steady. It was a gift. But gifts come with trust. You broke that when you sent Stephanie away. She scoffed. It was one barbecue. Get over it. That was it. No sorry, no acknowledgement of the pain. 60 days, Sarah, I said, and ended the call. The silence after was heavy but freeing. They'd fight, but I was ready. For the first time in years, I felt the chains loosening. After that final call from my sister, I turned off my phone and tried to focus on work. But a few days later, she called again with a new demand money for Samantha's summer camp. It was Wednesday, the office buzzing with post-holiday cases when her name lit up my screen. I hesitated, then answered expecting another rant about the email. Instead, her voice was syrupy, almost cheerful. Michelle. I've been thinking, she said. Samantha got into this incredible outdoor camp in Alaska exploring glaciers, wildlife, the works. It's $20,000, but it's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. You're always so generous with family, so I thought you'd want to help. I nearly dropped the phone. Generous. After she'd sent Stephanie away from the barbecue with nothing but a shrug, I took a breath to keep my voice steady. Sarah, I'm already covering the cabin mortgage, utilities, and more. I can't take on another expense like that. Have you looked into financial aid? The sweetness vanished. Financial aid. You're a lawyer, Michelle. You can afford it. This is for your niece. Don't you care about her future? I gripped my desk, the familiar sting of her accusations creeping in. I care about family, but I also care about fairness. Stephanie never asked for anything like that. And you know why I'm done helping. She scoffed. Done helping? You mean done being family? You're just jealous Samantha's got potential you can't stand. I didn't argue. No, Sarah. Find another way. I hung up my hands, shaking but my mind clear. She didn't mention Stephanie or the barbecue, not a hint of regret. By Friday, the family group chat was on fire. My sister had rallied the cousins, aunts, whoever would listen. Texts flooded in, some subtle, others blunt. One cousin wrote, "Heard you're cutting Sarah off pretty harsh over one holiday." Another, "Samantha's camp is a big deal. Why won't you help?" My mom sent a long message, "Michelle, you're acting selfish. Family supports family, not tears them down." I scrolled through each word like a pinprick. They painted me as cold, stingy, the lawyer too big for her roots. My sister must have spun the story, omitting how she'd turned Stephanie away, how she'd demanded money right after. I didn't respond. Engaging felt like stepping into quicksand. But the rumors spread beyond texts. A family friend mentioned seeing posts on social media, vague, but pointed about ungrateful relatives who forget where they came from. I knew who'd started it. My sister always had a knack for playing the victim, just like when we were kids, and she'd cry to get her way. This time, it wasn't just about her. It was about hurting me through whispers and half-truths. I needed clarity, so I booked a meeting with a colleague at the firm, Jordan, who specialized in property law. We met Monday morning in his office, the Anchorage skyline gray outside the window. Jordan, my family friend since law school, leaned back in his chair as I laid it all out. The cabin I'd bought for Sarah, the mortgage I'd paid for 7 years, the utilities, the plane tickets for family trips like the barbecue. I told him about Stephanie walking home alone, the email ultimatum, and now this new demand for $20,000. He listened, jotting notes, his face neutral but his eyes sharp. "You've got a solid case," he said when I finished. "The cabin's in your name, payments all traceable. You sent a clear notice, 60 days is standard. If she doesn't vacate, we can file for eviction. It's straightforward." I nodded, but the weight in my chest didn't lift. "What about the family drama?" I asked. "They're calling me selfish, spreading it everywhere." Jordan shrugged. "Let them talk. You're not the one who sent a kid away from a holiday table. You've got the deed and the moral high ground." I managed a small smile. He pulled up a template for the formal eviction notice, walking me through the steps, filing with the court, serving papers, ensuring everything was airtight. "You sure about this?" he asked as we wrapped up. It's not just a cabin. It's family. I looked at him steady. Family doesn't hurt my daughter and call it a mix-up. I'm sure. Leaving his office, I felt a strange mix of relief and resolve. The rumors stung, but they couldn't change the facts. I'd spent years giving money time trust only to have it thrown back when Stephanie needed them most. My phone buzzed again as I walked to my car. Another text from a cousin. Heard you're evicting Sarah. That's cold. I deleted it without replying. At home, Stephanie was studying her laptop open to college applications. She looked up, sensing my mood. More family stuff, she asked. I nodded. They're saying I'm selfish for not paying for your cousin's camp. She rolled her eyes. They didn't even let me eat at the barbecue, Mom. Why would you pay for anything? Her words cut through the noise. She was right. This wasn't about fairness to them. It was about protecting her. I hugged her, her strength fueling mine. That night, I reviewed the eviction template Jordan sent, double-checking every line. It wasn't just about the cabin anymore. It was about drawing a line showing my family that actions have consequences, especially when they hurt the one person I'd do anything for. Sarah could spread all the rumors she wanted, but I was done being the family ATM. The next steps were clear, and I was ready to take them. A few days after meeting Jordan, my mom showed up at the apartment door holding a printed copy of the email ultimatum, her eyes red, like I'd betrayed her. It was a Wednesday afternoon, the Anchorage rain tapping against the window, when the knock came sharp and insistent. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, in her favorite fuzzy robe, clutching the paper like a weapon. I opened the door but didn't invite her in, blocking the threshold. She pushed past anyway, waving the printout. This is it, Michelle. You're really evicting your own family, she said, her voice raised and trembling. I stepped back, letting her enter, but kept my tone even. It's not eviction yet, Mom. It's notice. 60 days to find something else. She laughed, a short, bitter sound. Notice. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Tearing the family apart over one little misunderstanding at the barbecue. I felt the anger rise but held it in. Misunderstanding. You told Stephanie there was no room, sent her walking the trails alone on a holiday. That's not little. She waved her hand, dismissing it. We had 28 people. The cabin was full. She should have confirmed better. I crossed my arms. She did. And even if she didn't, you don't treat your granddaughter like that. She paced the living room, her robe swishing with each step. You're exaggerating. No one meant to hurt her. But now you're hurting all of us. Your dad is heartbroken. Your sister is panicking. How can you be so cold? I took a breath, recalling Jordan's advice to stay factual. Cold. I've paid for that cabin for 7 years, Mom. Mortgage, utilities, everything. I did it to help, but help has limits, especially when you hurt my daughter. She stopped and looked at me, her eyes narrowing. Limits. Family doesn't have limits. We raised. You gave you everything. And now you send this. She held up the printout and in one swift motion tore it in half, the paper ripping with a sharp sound. She let the pieces fall to the floor. Like that ended it. There. That's done. Now retract it and pay for Samantha's camp, like Sarah asked. Then we'll forgive you for this tantrum. Forgive me? The word hit like a punch. You think tearing the printout voids the notice? I said, my voice steady but firm. It's legal, Mom. And forgiveness. You haven't even apologized for what you did to Stephanie. She straightened her face, flushing. Apologize? For what? A crowded table. Oh, for goodness sake, Michelle, stop acting like we're villains. You're the one destroying the family, threatening your parents over nothing. I stepped closer, my words clear. Nothing. Stephanie showed up with a pie and cookies, excited to be there. You looked at her and said, no room, no bed, go home. She walked those trails alone, her phone dying, no ride offered. She spent the holiday eating cold toast in an empty apartment because you couldn't make space for one more chair. That's not nothing. She flinched for a second, but recovered fast. She's 18. She can handle it. And the camp for Samantha, it's $20,000, but it's her future. You owe us that much after all we've sacrificed for you. I shook my head. The hypocrisy burning. Sacrificed. You mean the years I waited tables through law school paid for your bills, the cabin, the medical plans? I sacrificed Mom. And now you want more while ignoring what you did to my child. She crossed her arms, mimicking me. Your child is fine. This is about you. Always has been. The smart one who thinks she's better. Well, newsflash, family sticks together. If you evict us, you're no daughter of mine. The words stung, but I didn't waver. If sticking together means letting you hurt Stephanie, then I'm okay with that. The notice stands. Find a new place. She stared at me, her mouth opening, then closing like she couldn't believe it. You'll regret this, she said, finally turning toward the door. We all will. But we'll forgive if you fix it now. I didn't move. There's nothing to fix on my side. You chose exclusion. Now face the consequences. She left without another word, the door slamming behind her. I stood there, the torn paper on the floor mocking me, but my resolve held. They didn't ask about Stephanie, didn't express regret, just demanded forgiveness and money. It confirmed everything. I wasn't overreacting. My husband came home that evening and I told him about the visit. He listened, his face tight. They still don't get it, he said, hugging me. But you did the right thing. Stephanie overheard from her room and joined us. Grandma came here, she asked, her eyes wide. I nodded. She tore the email printout, thought that ended it. Stephanie laughed, a small, sad sound. Like that changes anything. They didn't even say sorry, did they? I shook my head. No, just more demands. She hugged me too. Thanks for standing up, Mom. It means a lot. That fueled me. Jordan called later to check in. How's the family reacting? I told him about the visit, the tear, the forgiveness line. Classic denial, he said. But legally, it's solid. We'll file if needed. I thanked him and hung up, knowing the battle wasn't over. My sister texted that night, Mom's devastated. Fix this or you're out of the family. I deleted it. They could threaten all they wanted, but I was done bending. The line was drawn, and I wouldn't cross it back. After my mom left the apartment that day, I contacted Jordan to push forward with the legal process for selling the cabin, and within a week, a buyer had made an offer. The notice was already in place, 60 days ticking down, but I wasn't waiting for them to comply. I listed the property priced fairly for the Alaska market, not inflated to squeeze every dollar, just enough to close the chapter. The buyer, a young family from Anchorage, loved the tundra location for weekend getaways, and they wanted it vacant. Vacant possession required, the agent reminded me over the phone. I understood and confirmed we'd handle it through the courts if needed. Jordan filed the formal eviction that same week, serving the papers via certified mail to the cabin address. My sister received them and the calls started anew, but this time I didn't pick up. Texts came in waves from her. You can't sell our home. This is theft. From my mom. Stop this now, or you're no longer welcome. I deleted them, all, the chains loosening further with each one. They hadn't moved a thing, Jordan reported after a check-in call. They're digging in, he said. We proceed with the hearing. I agreed, knowing it would get ugly, but necessary. The eviction hearing was set for the end of the month in the local court near the cabin. I didn't attend, sending Jordan in my place with all the documentation, deed, mortgage records, payment history. From what he told me later, it wasn't pleasant. My sister showed up with my parents in tow, all three arguing that the cabin was a gift, a family home, not mine to sell. The judge reviewed the papers and ruled in my favor, property in my name, no lease agreement, eviction granted. They had 10 days to vacate or face removal by authorities. My sister raised her voice in the courtroom, calling it injustice, but the gavel came down. Jordan texted me the outcome win. They're furious, but it's done. I exhaled the first full breath in weeks. The sale closed shortly after the buyer, eager to take possession. I wired the funds to my account, the money a cushion for Stephanie's college, not for them. With the cabin gone, I cut the last ties. No more mortgage payments, no utilities, no reimbursements. They got a harsh lesson in self-reliance, something I'd learned long ago. My sister took my parents in at first to her small rental in a nearby Alaska town. She played the compassionate role, posting on social media about taking care of family in tough times with vague hints at betrayal. Cousins liked and commented, offering sympathy, but the facade cracked quickly. A week later, my sister called, leaving a voicemail I almost deleted, but listened to out of curiosity. "I can't do this." "Michelle," she said, her voice frazzled. "They're bickering nonstop. Mom says the place is too cramped. Dad complains the kids are too loud. They won't share the bathroom. I'm losing my mind." She paused, then added, "They need a rental. Help with the deposit, at least." "It's the least you can do." I played it for my husband and Stephanie. "The least," Stephanie said, shaking her head. After what they did, I didn't reply to the voicemail. My sister texted next. "You saw them turn Stephanie away and did nothing. That was your choice. This is mine." "No." I sent back, simple and final. She hesitated in her replies, then stopped. A week later, she kicked them out too, sending them to a cheap rental nobody would envy: 2 rooms, 1 heater, a slanted front step in a rundown area. Their pensions covered basics, but the vacations, dinner parties, anniversary trips to warmer states, all gone. They reached out to extended family seeking sympathy, claiming I'd abandoned them without warning, unstable and heartless as always. But I'd already talked to the uncles and cousins, quietly sending scanned bills, the eviction order time-stamped. One uncle replied, "Didn't know the full story." Wow. Another sent a thumbs up, no words needed. No one stepped in to rescue them, and I didn't either. The calls and texts slowed but didn't stop completely. My sister tried one last time a month after the sale. "The rental's falling apart. Help us find something better." I blocked the number. The freedom was tangible, like a weight lifted. Stephanie noticed it too. "You seem lighter, Mom," she said over dinner one night. I nodded. "I am. No more carrying them." My husband squeezed my hand. "Good. Now focus on us." And I did. The money from the sale went into her college fund, giving her options she'd never demand but deserved. The family faded into silence, their choices catching up to them. 2 years later, I sat on the porch with Stephanie, sipping iced tea under the Anchorage sun. No plans, just a peaceful afternoon. Life had settled into a rhythm I hadn't known was possible, without the constant pull of family demands. Stephanie was thriving in college, studying environmental science, inspired by those Alaska trails she'd walked alone that night. The money from the cabin sale had covered her tuition and more, giving her the freedom to focus without worry. She looked at me across the table, her eyes bright. "You know I don't miss them," she said casually. Neither did I. The silence from that side was golden, broken only by occasional texts or calls I ignored. My phone buzzed, an unknown number, but I knew the pattern. I opened it without thinking. "Hope, you're proud of what you've done." I deleted it instantly, no hesitation, no reaction. Stephanie noticed. "Them again?" she asked offhandedly. "Probably," I replied. "But they're not my problem anymore." And they weren't. They'd said no room for Stephanie at their table. Now there was no room in our lives for their cruelty, control, or manipulation. They were still in that crumbling rental, pointing fingers at everyone but themselves. From what little I heard through distant relatives, my sister had bounced between jobs, unable to keep the compassionate image she'd tried to project. My parents' pensions barely stretched for the basics, no more trips or parties, the anniversary cruise forgotten. They reached out sporadically, blaming me for their hardships, but never reflecting on their choices. One cousin mentioned my mom complaining at a family gathering about the ungrateful daughter who abandoned us, but the sympathy had dried up. People knew the full story. Now the bills I'd paid, the cabin I'd provided, the way they'd turned Stephanie away, without remorse. No one rushed to help, and that was fine. The freedom tasted sweet, like the iced tea in my hand. Stephanie's success was the brightest part. She graduated top of her class, interning with a conservation group in Alaska, turning that painful walk into passion for the land. "It's funny, Mom," she said one day. "That night on the trails, I felt so small, but it made me stronger." I nodded, proud of her resilience. My career at the firm had steadied too, no more overtime guilt from family pulls. My husband and I even took a vacation, our first real one in years, to a quiet cabin, not theirs but ours, rented for peace. Jordan called occasionally to check in, our friendship solid after the legal battles. "How's everything?" he asked in one call. I told him about Stephanie's internship, the calm days. "And them?" he pressed gently. "Still struggling, but that's their path now." He paused, then said, "You did the right thing, Michelle." I saw the evidence, the lack of remorse. Confirming it with relatives, they agreed your action was justified. His words were a twist I didn't expect, but welcome, like validation from an old friend. "Thanks, Jordan," I replied. "It means a lot." He laughed. "Anytime. If they try anything legal, I'm here." But they didn't. The threats faded, replaced by silence. One evening, a package arrived unmarked, but the postmark from their town gave it away. I opened it cautiously. Inside, a letter from my mom scrawled in shaky hand. "We miss you. Come back." No apology, no mention of Stephanie, just a plea for reconciliation on their terms. I set it aside, unread by the others, and tossed it the next day. Stephanie saw and nodded. Good choice. The money from the sale had given us closure too, a fund for her future, peace for mine. I didn't return. Calls, didn't send support, didn't lose sleep. I'd protected my daughter, chosen her at last. But tell me, did I go too far or just far enough? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Sitting on the porch that day, I reflected on the journey from the hurt of that 4th of July to the freedom Stephanie and I had claimed. I'd learned a profound lesson about family and boundaries, one I wished I'd grasped sooner. True family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about respect, support, and mutual care. When those are missing, when entitlement and cruelty take their place, it's okay to set limits, even if it means walking away. Protecting your child, protecting yourself comes first, no matter the cost. It hurt at the time, the calls, the rumors, the silence, but it freed us from a cycle of giving without thanks, of hurt disguised as misunderstandings. Don't let toxic relationships drain your peace or your resources. If you're facing similar family dynamics, know it's all right to choose your own path, to say no and mean it. The value in our story is this: boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-preservation. They allow you to build a life filled with genuine love, not forced loyalty. I've commented on it often in quiet moments with my husband or Stephanie, how cutting ties didn't make me cold, it made me whole. If you're reading this and it resonates, take it as a warning. Don't wait for the breaking point like I did. Recognize the signs early, the demands, the lack of remorse, the exclusion, and act to protect your peace. Your future self will thank you. Thanks for listening to my story. Subscribe for more real family stories like this. Like and comment what you'd do in my situation.